Well, they ought to call Donald Trump the Phoenix. He rose from the dead last night, came back swinging, and put Hillary Clinton on the defensive. The second presidential debate was far different from the first one. This time, Donald Trump seemed much more prepared. Hillary Clinton was on the defensive much of the night, and if you had to say who won, Trump was the clear winner. Terry?
Well, the town hall debate was extremely tough, with both candidates taking very hard shots at one another. David Brody brings us the story from St. Louis.
The tone was set early on when Clinton and Trump wouldn't even shake hands. It also didn't take long for the much talked about video of Trump's lewd comments to come up.
This was locker room talk. I'm not proud of it. I apologize to my family. I apologize to the American people.
He has said that the video doesn't represent who he is, but I think it's clear to anyone who heard it that it represents exactly who he is.
From that point, though, Trump went on the offensive, bringing up her husband's past immoral conduct.
And there's never been anybody in the history of politics in this nation that's been so abusive to women. So you can say any way you want to say it, but Bill Clinton was abusive to women. Hillary Clinton attacked those same women and attacked them viciously.
Just before the debate, Trump held a press conference with 4 women who say Bill Clinton abused them. He also invited them to the debate. But Trump wasn't done, moving on to other subjects like those infamous deleted emails.
If I win, I am going to instruct my Attorney General to get a special prosecutor to look into your situation, because there has never been so many lies, so much deception.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Yeah, because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.
Clinton played defense on new email leaks revealing that during those paid Wall Street speeches, she talked of needing both a public and private position on certain issues, leaving her open to being two-faced.
As I recall, that was something I said about Abraham Lincoln after having seen the wonderful Steven Spielberg movie called Lincoln.
Now she's blaming the lie on the late, great Abraham Lincoln. That's one that I haven't. Okay, Honest Abe. Honest Abe never lied. That's the good thing. That's the big difference between Abraham Lincoln and you.
Along with the zingers, Trump had some missteps, like admitting he hasn't paid individual federal income taxes for years.
Did you use that $916 million loss to avoid paying personal federal income taxes?
Of course I do. Of course I do. And so do all of her donors, or most of her donors.
He also admitted he and running mate Mike Pence don't see eye to eye on foreign policy in Syria.
He and I haven't spoken, and I disagree.
Clinton didn't make any major mistakes. Instead, this debate came down mostly to insults.
Secretary Clinton, does Mr. Trump have the discipline to be a good leader?
No.
I'm shocked to hear that.
Well, it's not only my opinion, it's the opinion of many others. National security experts, Republicans, former Republican members of Congress.
Meanwhile, Trump got personal when talking about Clinton's recent comments that half of his supporters were a basket of deplorables.
She has tremendous hate in her heart. And when she said deplorables, she meant it. And when she said irredeemable, they're irredeemable. You didn't mention that. But when she said they're irredeemable, to me, that might have been even worse.
The only thing worse may have been a presidential debate that hit a new low in American history.
Well, interesting, ladies and gentlemen, what happened, but nevertheless, Trump was the winner. And basically, the pundits were writing him off. I mean, let's face it, a guy does something 11 years ago. There's a conversation in Hollywood where he's trying to look like he's macho. And 11 years after that, they surface it from the Washington Post or whatever, bring it out within 30 days or so of the election. And this is supposed to be the death blow, and everybody writes him off. Okay, he's dead. Now you better get out of the way and let Mike Pence run the campaign. And the Donald says no, but as I say, he's like the Phoenix. They think he's dead. He's come back. and he came back strong. So he won that debate. The next one, we'll see what happens. But in the meantime, he speaks to adoring thousands wherever he goes. And David Brody is with us now from St. Louis. And David, you talked to the Trump team. Did they say anything about the preparation for this last debate?
They did, Pat. As a matter of fact, talking to some campaign sources this morning, saying that they believe what Donald Trump turned in last night was a textbook performance, and that's a quote. And they also say that he prepared much harder this time. That was the word they used, harder this time. And clearly it paid off. I mean, I don't think there's any question that Donald Trump did very well in that debate. You know, one of the things I noticed, Pat, is that if you notice in Hempstead, New York, in that first debate, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, he was just fine, pretty much focused, and then I don't know, lost interest, couldn't keep it going, couldn't keep the momentum going. Last night, a whole different story. 90 minutes, start to finish, laser focused on Hillary Clinton. And, you know, one of those campaign sources telling me this morning that they came prepared for combat and not a conversation, because they acknowledged that the last debate, Hillary Clinton did well because she was in a combative mood. This time, they said Donald Trump was going to come ready to fight.
What is your take? It looks like she was kind of passive on this thing, because actually the moderators were asking questions, and the audience was asking questions that aimed at her that were pretty tough.
Well, and we saw Donald Trump go after the moderators quite a bit during the debate, even at one point saying, hey, it's 1 on 3 out here, which I thought was a pretty interesting line and got a kind of a chuckle from the audience. Look, I think one of the big concerns that Hillary Clinton's going to have going forward is this idea that she's mailing it in and letting Trump be Trump. And, you know, there's a lot of folks in the Hillary Clinton campaign that want to just stand by the wayside, if you will, and just watch Donald Trump implode. The problem with that is that you can turn in what happened last night by Hillary Clinton, which is a pedestrian performance. She pretty much let Trump have his way for the most part, didn't really push back as hard as many of her supporters wanted to, and that's what happens when you get complacent. So if she's going to continue that for the next 30 days, we may be in for a much, much different race, and those polls will most likely tighten quite a bit, because my understanding through some sources close to the Trump campaign is that this is going to be scorched earth for the next 30 days. It will be combat, Pat. I don't think there's any question about it.
David, you know, I head up a university, and we try to teach people the fine points of logic and reasoning. It doesn't look like there's much logic in reasoning. For example, there were questions asked to Donald Trump, and everybody said, okay, he won. But they asked him about taxes. He didn't really hit it very hard. They asked him about the Affordable Care Act, and he could have knocked out of the park, and he didn't do it. They asked about the emails, and he talked about all of them, but there was nothing in depth. At least that was my feeling. Did you have that feeling or not?
I really did. I actually, the same thoughts were going through my mind as well. And look, as the campaign will say, they didn't necessarily come. They wanted to lay out the vision. And if you notice at the beginning, he being Donald Trump, talked about making America great again. He didn't say that in the first debate until 90 minutes in. He said it 3 times in the first 10 minutes or so of that debate. So he was more focused on the overall message. But right, when it came to substance, you know, I thought the Obamacare or the Affordable Health Care Act and what he was going to do to replace it, I mean, it was a lot of mumbo jumbo. He didn't really quite have it all down. He talked about state lines, and, you know, but it's something he's been saying for a while, but no real meat on the bone there. And I think that was an issue. And he had a couple other missteps as well, obviously talking about how he disagrees with his vice presidential running mate, Mike Pence, on policy in Syria, though I will say that is authentically Donald Trump. You'll never hear a politician say, hey, you know what, I disagree with my running mate. That's a polished politician will never say that. Donald Trump, not a polished politician. He'll say just about anything, as we're learning, Pat. You
know, if he wanted to set up the Senate, though, there wasn't one single Republican who voted for the Affordable Care Act, not one. And the thing is a disaster. The premiums are going up through the roof. The deductibles are going up double. People are terribly upset. The insurance companies are exiting the program by the hundreds. It is a complete meltdown and will be collapsed in about another 6 or 8 months. But why didn't he bring that out? It looks like to me, I mean, he wanted to help his buddies in the Senate. That would be one way to do it.
Yeah, I think for the most part, look, Donald Trump is not going to win this debate or, quite frankly, the presidency talking about going 2, 3, 4 paragraphs deep into substance. You know, he's always talked about leverage. He's always talked about this idea that he wanted to make sure that, you know, he has not just maximum leverage, but the willingness to negotiate a lot of this. And so the reality is that for people that are going to vote for Donald Trump, they're going to have to take a leap of faith, and it is a leap of faith to know that he'll have the right advisors around him that know policy. Remember, we talked to David Barton, CEO of Wall Builders, a conservative Christian leader who said Donald Trump is going to run a CEO model type of government. He's not going to run your typical government as we've seen presidents do in the past. He's a CEO who delegates public policy positions, if you will, this time, to certain folks around him. And then he says, okay, boys, go do your, and ladies, go do your job.
All right, what is the plan of attack for the next 30 days?
Combat, combat, combat. I think they realize that they're in an all-out fight, and they've got to do something. And look, it is far past time. You know, the train left the station a long time ago with Donald Trump trying to appeal to the squishy middle here in America. You know, the folks that, you know, want to see a more presidential, a more temperate, a more calm Donald Trump. Look, he is who he is. And he is Donald Trump, and he is a brash street brawler from New York. We saw it last night. That's not going to change in 30 days. And get ready for Las Vegas in 10 days, because boy, oh boy, what happens in Vegas sure is not going to stay in Vegas. It's going to be all around the world, Pat.
All right, David, we're going to look forward to your reports. Thank you so much. Well, in other news, folks, Hurricane Matthew has died down and moved out to sea, but has left behind, certainly in our area, flooded area, streets, power outages, serious damage, and a death toll of nearly 20 in the United States, and maybe as many as 500 in that beleaguered nation of Haiti. John Jessup reports from Florida on the most powerful storm to hit the Atlantic region in years.
Vanessa Gwen wanted to be in church Sunday, eager to give thanks that she and her family survived the storm. The back of their home is mostly glass, and while downed trees and scattered debris surrounded them, the Gwens found their home intact. The only casualty, blinds on the back porch.
Like I was telling my son, he was like, Mom, we don't have power. And I said, but you know, there's people who don't have a house. He says, Mom, we don't have internet. But there's people who don't have shelter. So, you know, you cannot be selfish.
Friends Deborah and Talitha Portee found a toppled tree on their roof. What goes through your mind knowing that, first of all, the storm could have been worse,
That's right.
And then secondly, the damage to your home could have been more than what it is?
Well, it lets us know that regardless, God is in control.
I know without a shadow of a doubt it was only God.
Others weren't as fortunate. Matthew washed ashore at a strong Category 4, downing power lines, uprooting trees, and ripping off roofs. Majid Khan spent a day cleaning up the aluminum canopy from his convenience store.
It was blown over. It was all over the road. Other than that, we are very thankful to God, and we made it okay.
Also thankful, residents who stayed at a school shelter in Flagler County.
This one here was supposed to be very bad, but praise the Lord, it wasn't.
The Floridians we met all acknowledged for the most part they dodged a bullet. Still, stretches of the Florida coast sustained significant damage, like Highway A1A. This scenic road, parts of it caved in, other parts were washed away by ocean water. Officials estimate the damages here could be one of the costliest storms in U.S. history.
Floodwaters besieged communities in Georgia and South Carolina. And in North Carolina, Matthew's storm surge triggered historic flooding that proved deadly.
Water can kill, and that's exactly what has happened, sadly, in North Carolina, and we still have those dangers ahead of us.
Thousands had to be rescued, more than 600 in Fayetteville alone. Just look at this video of a dramatic rescue of a mother and her toddler who clung to a car as rising water closed in.
Hold on, ma'am, he's gonna come out.
In Virginia, hundreds of thousands lost power, and the governor called in the National Guard to assist with flooding. The worst devastation undoubtedly came in Haiti, where estimates of the death toll are around 1,000 and counting, and now growing concerns of a cholera outbreak. CBN's Operation Blessing is on the ground handing out chlorine, needed to provide safe drinking water and to prevent waterborne diseases like cholera. OB also has teams on the ground in Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Amen.
Pastor Derek Jackson, without electricity at his own home, helped serve others who rode out the storm in area shelters. He says events like these can open the door to share the gospel.
First, show them the love of Jesus Christ, and then be able to communicate in words the gospel message.
A simple act that goes a long way in times like these. John Jessup, CBN News, Volusia County, Florida.
Thanks, John. We don't have the full scope, and I was wrong when I spoke earlier. I thought the last figure I had was 500 in Haiti, and our report showed it's up to 1,000. That's devastating. I mean, the most poverty-stricken area in the entire Western Hemisphere to get hit like this. And Operation Blessing is there in Haiti, especially with chlorine, because the thing that they're so afraid about is a second wave, which would be cholera, as the sewage overflows and pollutes the streams and all the water, this deadly cholera that was brought in by the United Nations. So we have something that can fight that, chlorine, and we are making thousands and thousands of gallons of it. But in addition to that, we have medicine, and we have blankets, and we have shelter, and we have food, and we're doing the same thing in Fayetteville and other areas. If you want to help, it's Operation Blessing, or CBN.com, whichever makes you happy. CBN Center, Virginia Beach, Virginia. Our telephone number is easy to remember. It's 1-800-700-7000.